Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we extract the most powerful knowledge nuggets from the best sources so you can get well-informed quickly and confidently. Today, we are undertaking a deep dive into something really critical and honestly pretty stressful sometimes in English conversation.
Which is,
Mastering the art of polite disagreement.
yes, a big one.
Think about it. You, the listener, maybe you're preparing for a crucial meeting, or you're in a casual debate with colleagues, or maybe just chatting with a friend. You have a genuinely good point, a perspective that's different from what's being said, but you freeze up.
Happens all the time.
You hesitate because you're worried about sounding aggressive or spoiling the relationship or just making things tense.
But the risk feels really high.
It often feels like, how do you even do that? How do you stand firm on your opinion but stay completely respectful? Is polite disagreement actually achievable?
It's a great question.
So our mission today, drawing from expert sources, we're talking linguistics, communication strategy, cultural nuance,
All the good stuff.
is to give you a definitive shortcut. Basically a blueprint for navigating this challenge. We'll cover the cultural landmines,
Those are important.
the 4 essential strategies you really need, the exact phrases broken down by why you'd use them, and specific scenarios. Think high-stakes stuff like handling a tricky client or even managing disagreements in friendships.
And we really can't stress enough how vital this is for anyone looking to, well, genuinely enhance their overall English conversation skills. Our sources definitely confirm that mastering this complex area, it's kind of the hallmark of sophisticated communication.
Right.
It empowers you to express your ideas confidently, ensures your view, even if it's contrary, gets heard, and lets you participate meaningfully, especially in higher-level discussions, without creating unnecessary friction or, tension.
Okay, let's get stuck into that cultural side first then, because you mentioned it, and it seems like the root of why this is so tricky.
It really is.
When you look at how disagreement is handled in many English-speaking cultures, there's this
Paradox.
definitely a paradox. Explain that. Well, when people agree, it's often loud, enthusiastic, absolutely great idea, clear affirmation.
Yeah, very visible.
But when someone needs to disagree, suddenly the strategies get muted. Our sources use words like muddy, less clear, less obvious, even almost hidden. Why so ambiguous?
Well, it often boils down to a kind of fundamental conflict avoidance mechanism.
Yeah.
It's embedded in certain cultural norms.
So even if we think disagreement is healthy.
Intellectually, yes.
Yeah.
Many people say, oh, disagreement is good. It leads to innovation, better dialogue. But that's often not the emotional or the cultural reality on the ground.
Right.
For many people, a direct contradiction, just saying, I disagree, flat out can feel disrespectful, confrontational, or like it's disrupting the harmony of the group.
So people instinctively try to soften it.
Exactly. They cushion their opposition.
Got
It's
it.
often about protecting the other person's face, their social standing,
Okay, so if the direct route, just saying, nope, I don't agree with that, is culturally risky, then we have to rely much more on, indirect language.
Precisely. And that leads straight to the core skill you need here, the ability to read between the lines.
Okay. Understanding what's not being said directly?
Exactly. To really master this, you have to recognize and understand the meaning that someone intended but deliberately didn't express directly. You're listening for hedging language words like maybe or perhaps. You're listening for modal verbs like could or might. You're listening for those linguistic cushions that signal, okay, here comes some opposition.
And why is that so crucial? It seems like a lot of work.
Well, it's crucial for 2 main reasons. First, you need to use this nuanced language yourself so you can disagree without sounding like you're picking a fight.
Makes sense.
And second, maybe even more importantly, you need to be able to correctly interpret someone else's softened disagreement when it's directed at you. Otherwise, you might completely miss the fact that they're actually rejecting your idea.
Okay, give us an example of this hidden language in action. Like if someone says, that's an interesting approach, but I wonder if we have the resources for it.
Yeah, classic example. Are they genuinely just wondering about resources?
Probably not, right?
Not usually, no. They're often politely, but quite firmly, saying, that idea is too expensive, or that's impractical and I object to it. The wondering is the cushion.
What are some other common tells? You mentioned modal verbs.
Right. Using words like might, could, perhaps. If a colleague says, perhaps we could look at other options later.
They don't really mean later.
Rarely. It's often a very gentle way of saying, let's just drop this idea for now. They focus on the timing or the logistics. Do we have the budget? Is now the right time? rather than attacking the idea itself. It's a way to avoid direct confrontation.
So navigating disagreement is like a two-way street. You have to soften your own message, and you have to decode how much softening others are using.
Exactly. It's double-edged. And what's really fascinating, our sources point out this constant clash between two views of disagreement, which on one side, you've got the positive, maybe more academic view.
Mm.
Disagreement leads to dialogue and innovation. Conflict sharpens ideas, brings out the best solutions.
Okay.
But on the other side, you have the more common, perhaps more emotional view. Disagreement is conflict to be avoided. It threatens relationships, disrupts harmony.
So using polite language is trying to steer it towards the positive view.
Precisely. By consciously using polite, nuanced language, you're actively trying to guide the conversation towards that constructive, dialogue-focused side, even if the person you're talking to instinctively sees it as conflict. It's a tool for keeping the emotional temperature down, so rationality has a chance.
Okay, that cultural background makes a lot of sense. It explains why it feels so complicated. So let's move into the how, the action plan.
All right.
Our sources pull together 4, let's call them foundational behavioral strategies, things you need to do. And when you use them together, they apparently allow for quite strong disagreement while still maintaining courtesy and professionalism. Which one's the absolute starting point?
The first one is paramount, absolutely fundamental, because it controls the whole atmosphere of the discussion.
Yeah.
It's maintain calm and neutral tone.
Okay. Stay calm, use neutral language, keep your tone even.
Exactly. The whole goal here is to strategically, consciously remove the emotion from your voice when you're expressing opposition.
That sounds like the hardest part, honestly, especially if you feel strongly about something or you think the other person is just wrong.
It is hard, but it's incredibly powerful because of the psychological effect it has.
How so?
Well, think about it. When one person injects strong emotion, anger, frustration, even just excessive passion, it triggers a response in the listener. It's almost physiological.
Like a fight or flight response.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They shift from listening rationally to feeling defensive.
Yeah.
By keeping your voice calm and neutral, you signal, hey, this is an intellectual exchange, not a personal attack. We're not heading into an emotional battle here.
So it keeps the other person receptive.
It keeps their guard down, yes. The aim in any difficult but effective conversation is to make sure everyone feels heard without feeling attacked. That prevents frustration building up and keeps the focus where it should be, on the ideas themselves.
Okay, so strategy 1, calm, neutral tone. If you manage that, strategy 2 becomes more effective, which is be clear, but state the why.
Yes, very important.
It's not enough just to say, I see it differently.
Absolutely not. Just stating, I disagree, or something vague like that, without any context, it often comes across as dismissive.
Or even a bit arrogant.
It can, yeah. And it basically just stops the conversation cold. It doesn't move things forward. It's critical to state why you disagree. Back it up with evidence or logic, or maybe something you've observed.
So it becomes constructive.
That's the word. It's the constructive mechanism. When you give your rationale, you shift the conversation. It stops being a battle of my opinion versus your opinion and becomes an actual exchange of ideas, hopefully backed by facts or principles.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Instead of just saying, I disagree with the budget proposal, you'd say something like, I disagree with the budget proposal because our projections show that vendor costs in Q3 are historically, say, 15% higher than what's anticipated in this document.
Okay, that gives a concrete reason. It takes it out of the purely subjective realm.
Exactly. And that ties directly into strategy number 3, which is vital for keeping things professional. Keep it impersonal.
Right. Focus on the topic, not the person.
100%. The focus has to stay exclusively on the idea or the data or the proposal being discussed, not on the person who brought it up.
And our sources were really specific about avoiding language that sounds like a personal attack or judgment.
Yes, extremely specific. You have to consciously avoid phrases that use the word you in a critical way.
Like what?
Like, you always miss this detail, or you don't understand the market, or even just your numbers are wrong.
Ah, okay, even your numbers are wrong feels personal.
It does. Because as soon as that critical you or your comes in, the conversation shifts. It stops being a critique of the idea and starts feeling like a judgment on the individual's competence or their character or intelligence.
So even if someone is responsible for, say, a flawed report.
You still phrase the criticism around the flaw itself. So using your example, instead of your figures are wrong, you'd say something like, The figures in this forecast seem to omit the Q3 risk assessment, which looks like it fundamentally changes the outcome.
I see. You're pointing out the issue with the document's content, not the person's ability.
That's the perfect distinction. Getting rid of you in critical statements is just a really powerful rule of thumb for any sensitive conversation in English.
Okay, calm tone, state the why, keep it impersonal. What's the fourth strategy?
The fourth one tackles those small but surprisingly damaging friction points in language. It's connect instead of contrast.
Connect instead of contrast. What does that mean in practice?
It means being really careful with common contrast words, especially in sensitive discussions. Words like but, however, instead, or, on the other hand.
Why avoid those? They seem like standard ways to transition.
They are, but they have a hidden effect. They inherently negate or cancel out whatever positive thing you said right before them. The listener tends to only really hear the part after the but.
Okay, I think I know what you mean. Like when someone says, I really appreciate your input, but I think we should do this instead.
Exactly. That little word but just acts like a linguistic eraser. It wipes out the appreciation.
And the person hears, okay, they didn't appreciate my input at all. They were just warming up to shoot it down.
Precisely. It psychologically resets the conversation.
Yeah.
It makes the listener feel like any acknowledgement you offered was just a formality, a fake out, before the real objection landed.
So what's the technique then? How do you connect without using but?
The technique is, first, you listen fully. Then you offer your recognition phrase acknowledging their point, which we'll get to next. And then you express your alternative thought, but you bridge to it differently.
How?
You can use conjunctions that add to the discussion rather than subtract. Maybe something like and at the same time, or and building on that.
Yeah.
Or often the simplest way is just to state your alternative thought directly after the recognition without any specific transition word like but or however. You just connect the ideas smoothly.
So you're bridging the gap instead of slamming a door with but.
That's a great way to put it. You keep the flow going, building rather than demolishing.
Okay. Those four strategies, calm tone, state why, keep it impersonal, connect, not contrast, feel like a really solid behavioral foundation.
They are. They set the stage for effective, polite disagreement.
Now let's get into the specific language, the toolkit, as you called it earlier. Our sources say these polite disagreement phrases usually serve one of three specific functions.
That's right. They aren't just random nice words. They're generally engineered, you could say, to do one of three jobs, all aimed at softening the directness while still being clear.
Okay, what's the first function?
Function one is recognizing and showing understanding. This is where you actively apply that connect instead of contrast idea we just discussed.
So this is the verbal cushioning.
Exactly. It's showing you've actually listened and engaged with the other person's point. These phrases signal, okay, I heard you, I processed your argument, and now here's my counterpoint based on that understanding.
Which makes the disagreement feel less like a flat rejection.
Right. More like a collaborative adjustment, maybe. It lowers the defenses.
So what are some good go-to phrases for this recognition function? Phrases that show you understand, even if you don't agree.
They're often quite simple, actually. You could start with something like, I see what you're saying and I think. Or perhaps, I appreciate and respect your point of view. My thoughts are. These validate the speaker's right to hold that view.
What about acknowledging the merit of their point?
Yes, that's powerful too. Phrases like, that's a valid point, and I believe. Or even quite directly, but still soft. True, fair point. I have to say I disagree.
True, fair point.
Yeah.
I like that. You're agreeing with the logic or a specific fact there is.
Exactly. Even if your overall conclusion is different, it shows you're engaging intellectually, not just dismissing them. It really reduces that risk of immediate defensiveness.
Okay, function one. Recognize and understand. What's function two?
Function two is including an apology.
Okay, this is the one that often surprises people. Why apologize if I genuinely disagree? It feels wrong somehow.
It's a really important distinction to make here. The apology isn't you saying, sorry, my opinion is wrong. Not at all.
Then what is it?
Think of it as a linguistic lubricant. It's an acknowledgement of the potential social friction you're about to introduce by contradicting someone. You're essentially apologizing for the upcoming moment of social discomfort, not for the actual substance of your disagreement.
Okay. So it's an apology for the act of disagreeing, not the content of the disagreement.
Precisely. It's very common in cultures that value indirectness because it softens the potential shock of contradiction.
That reframes it completely.
Yeah.
So what are some phrases that do this well?
They tend to be quick and efficient. You might use, "I'm sorry, I have to disagree on," or maybe slightly more formally, "My apologies. I respectfully disagree."
And a more casual one.
Just, "Sorry, I'm afraid I disagree." These phrases clearly state your position, but they do it gently. They signal that you're aware that disagreeing can be a bit disruptive socially.
Okay, apologies as social lubricant. Got it. What's the third function?
Function 3 is expressing neutrality or uncertainty.
This sounds interesting. This is where you might actually be certain, but you introduce doubt deliberately.
Exactly. This is a really sophisticated strategy, especially useful in professional settings, maybe with superiors. You might be completely clear in your own mind about your position and your reasons, but by introducing a bit of uncertainty, by hedging your own statement, you lower the tension. You subtly invite the other person into a shared space to find a solution, rather than creating a battle of certainties.
So it moves away from I'm right, you're wrong.
Yes. It transforms it into more of an open-ended inquiry. It allows both people to save face.
This sounds incredibly useful if you're disagreeing with your boss or someone higher up.
Absolutely. You shift the weight of certainty away from just yourself. So you might use phrases like, "I am not sure I agree with you on."
Even if you are sure.
Even if you are quite sure, yes. Or another excellent one, "I don't think you and I have the same opinion on this issue." It states the disagreement clearly, but without any challenge in the tone.
Any others?
Consider things like, "I could be wrong, but my understanding is that the data suggests," or, "I'm not sure I see it that way. Perhaps there's another angle we should consider."
Okay, so you're signaling a difference in perspective, but doing it in a way that invites collaboration rather than conflict.
That's the goal. Stand firm on your idea, but protect the relationship and keep the conversation moving forward productively.
Right. These three functions, recognition, apology, uncertainty, give us a really practical toolkit of phrases.
You do. They're the building blocks of polite disagreement language.
Now, let's take all the strategies, the phrases into the professional world. High-stakes situations.
Okay.
Because when you're disagreeing with something like a proposal, maybe from a client or an executive, just being polite isn't enough, is it?
No, definitely not.
The goal has to be constructive, solution-oriented. You can't just say no to an idea, especially from someone important. You have to offer an alternative way forward.
That's the crucial pivot in a professional context. Our sources really emphasize this. If your disagreement just stops at no or "I don't think that will work," the listener, client, boss, colleague, whoever is likely to walk away feeling frustrated.
And maybe feeling like you're not being helpful.
Exactly. Unsupported. You have to manage their expectations about their initial idea, sure, but you also have to simultaneously show you're still committed to the overall goal, whatever that may be.
Okay, let's walk through the scenario our sources gave. It's a classic sticky situation. You're updating a client.
Right.
And out of the blue, they request really significant large-scale changes to the project scope. Big changes.
Okay, happens all the time.
But they also insist on keeping the original deadline and the original budget. They basically want a lot more work for the exact same time and money.
The impossible request, yes, very common.
How do you handle that using these principles?
Okay, the sources suggest a controlled two-step response.
Yeah.
It uses everything we've discussed. Step 1 is polite disagreement using impersonal reasons.
Okay, so start polite, but get to the reality quickly.
Yes, you start with recognition, maybe validating their enthusiasm or the potential value of their ideas.
Yeah.
But then you immediately introduce the practical reality using neutral, impersonal language.
Yeah.
Focus on resources, timelines, budget constraints.
Not on them being unreasonable.
Definitely not. Avoid anything that sounds like blame. So the client suggests these big changes.
And I'd start by saying something like, I appreciate these suggestions. They're definitely forward-thinking. That's the recognition part. Function 1.
Perfect start. Then you pivot to the constraints, you might say.
Yeah.
Right now, given our current resource allocation, implementing all these significant changes at this stage, well, it presents a challenge.
Okay, using neutral language.
Yes. Then be specific. Based on our initial scope evaluation, the proposed additions look like they'll require an estimated 3 to 4 additional weeks and will substantially impact the original financial plan and the current project budget.
See how you avoided saying you're asking way too much? It's all focused on the project metrics, time, resources, budget.
Exactly. Calm, clear provides the why based on those external constraints.
But if we stop there, all we've done is deliver bad news. We basically just said no politely. That could still cause friction.
Precisely. Stopping there leaves the client hanging, potentially frustrated. Which brings us to step 2, adding alternatives.
Ah, the solution part.
Yes. You must immediately follow up by introducing solution-focused phrases. Show that you're still committed to getting them a great outcome, even if their initial plan isn't feasible as is. This shifts the emotional energy away from the disagreement and towards collaborative problem solving.
And this is where those solution phrases come in handy. Things like, how about we? Or maybe we could.
Exactly. And you need to frame these alternatives as being in the client's best interest. Maybe focusing on delivering on time or staying within budget or prioritizing the most impactful changes.
So use collaborative language.
Right. I think we should consider,
Yeah.
or my suggestion would be to prioritize, or an alternative solution might be to tackle 3 of these changes now and maybe phase the rest into a second stage.
Okay, so putting it all together for the client scenario. After explaining the constraints, I need to wrap it up constructively.
Yes, the conclusion is key.
So I might say, however, in the interest of delivering this project successfully, on time, and within budget, I'd like to propose a few constructive options for you to consider.
Perfect framing. You're aligning with their goals.
Option A. We incorporate all the changes, but we'd need to extend the deadline by, say, 1 month and adjust the budget accordingly. Option B. We identify the 3 most critical changes you've suggested and focused on implementing those within the original timeframe and budget.
Excellent. You're giving them clear choices.
And then end with a question, maybe.
Hmm.
Which of these approaches do you feel better aligns with your immediate priorities?
That whole sequence, that's the definition of professional, solution-oriented disagreement. You've said a firm no to the initial impossible request.
But politely.
Politely, yes. You've avoided making it personal. And crucially, you've demonstrated competence and commitment by immediately offering clear, manageable alternatives. You turned a potential fight into a collaborative decision.
That makes a huge difference. It's about partnership, not opposition.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered the strategies, the phrases, the professional context. What about different relationships? Does the approach change much?
Oh, significantly. Our sources stress that this whole art of disagreement is very fluid. The level of the politeness, the amount of softening you need, it changes dramatically depending on who you're talking to. It's all about the relationship context.
Let's break that down. What about, say, acquaintances and colleagues? This probably covers most of our day-to-day professional interactions, maybe community things too. People you know you have a decent rapport with, but they're not, like, your best friends.
Right. For this group, the core rule we discussed earlier remains really strict. Focus the disagreement entirely on the idea, not the person. And definitely keep avoiding that critical you language.
Why so strict here?
Because the goal is to maintain a positive working or community relationship for the future. You need to be able to cooperate with these people again. So preserving mutual respect is paramount.
Okay, let's use the example from the sources. A condo board meeting. Someone proposes a big renovation project.
Right. Let's say they propose spending a huge chunk of the budget on renovating a small co-working space that, frankly, hardly anyone ever uses.
Okay. How do you disagree with that politely but effectively in that group setting?
You could use a combination of the apology function and the solution-oriented approach. You wouldn't stand up and say, you're totally wrong to prioritize that useless space.
No, definitely not.
Instead, you might start with a softener, maybe an apology for interrupting the flow or disagreeing, or my apologies, but I feel I have to disagree slightly with the proposal to allocate such a large part of the budget to the co-working space right now.
Okay, gentle start. Then the why.
Then the impersonal why. Based on my recent observations, and maybe the sign-in sheets, it seems residents use that space very infrequently, perhaps because other shared facilities need updating more urgently.
Pointing to evidence, keeping it objective.
Exactly. And then, crucially, pivot straight to the solution. Instead, perhaps we should prioritize renovating the area that gets the most use, like the gym. I think that would provide immediate tangible value to almost all residents and might make the upcoming maintenance fee discussion a bit easier to justify.
Okay, that hits all the points. Polite opening, impersonal reason with evidence, concrete alternative solution, no personal attack.
Textbook example for that colleague acquaintance level. You've made your point clearly and constructively without damaging relationships.
That makes sense for colleagues. Now, what about close friends? The dynamic must shift quite a bit there.
Oh, completely. With close friends, the primary goal usually isn't winning the argument or optimizing a project. It's protecting the friendship itself.
So the stakes feel more emotional.
Exactly. Emotional, not professional or transactional. So our sources say here it's often really important to tread lightly, as they put it, disagree very softly.
Especially if the topic is sensitive.
Particularly then. The disagreement might touch on personal values, political beliefs, things people feel very strongly about. Let's take the example given. Discussing a government policy, like, say, a carbon tax. Your friend might be incredibly passionate about its environmental necessity.
Right. And maybe my perspective is different. Maybe I'm more concerned about its impact on, say, the cost of living for lower income families. How do I even bring that up without causing a huge argument?
This is where the uncertainty strategy, function 3, becomes your best friend. Combine it with hedging language, even if you feel quite certain about your own data or perspective.
So start with recognition again.
Always start with recognition,
Yeah.
especially with friends. Wow, I totally see why you feel so strongly about the environmental side of this, and honestly, I share that underlying concern for the planet. Validate their passion first.
Okay. Cushion established. Now the tricky part.
Now introduce your opposition softly, using uncertainty. I guess, I could be wrong here, but my main concern is that, while it might help reduce consumption in the short term, I'm just not totally convinced it's the most effective long-term solution. Especially when you look at the significant increase it seems to add to basic costs like heating or getting to work for people who are already struggling.
So I'm phrasing it as my concern using not totally convinced seems to add, softening it a lot.
Exactly. You're presenting your data or viewpoint as something you're grappling with, not as an attack on their certainty. You're sharing a perspective for discussion, not declaring an absolute truth.
And then what? Just leave it hanging there.
No, this is the most crucial step with friends. You have to explicitly keep the dialogue open. Don't just drop your counterpoint and walk away.
How?
End by genuinely asking for their thoughts on your concern. Something like, what do you think about that aspect? Or how do you reckon we balance those two things, the environmental need and the cost impact?
Ah, so you're signaling that you value their perspective and the friendship more than just winning the point.
That's precisely it. It keeps the connection intact, even amidst disagreement.
Okay, that's a really valuable distinction for friendships. Now, the fun one. Informal disagreement purely for family and intimate.
Right. The rule breakers.
This is where, apparently, after mastering all these rules of politeness, we get the luxury of just throwing them out the window.
Pretty much, yes. This is the privilege that comes with deep, established, trusting relationships. Think spouses, siblings, maybe lifelong best friends.
People who know you well enough not to take bluntness personally.
Exactly. With these people, you generally have enough relational trust built up that you can absorb a very direct disagreement without it causing offense or lasting damage. You can use highly informal, direct language.
But big caveat here, our sources were super clear on this.
Extremely clear. These phrases are absolutely not appropriate for the workplace or with acquaintances or really anyone outside that immediate trusted circle. Using them professionally would likely be disastrous. They depend entirely on that existing trust capital.
Okay, warning issued.
Yeah.
So what are these rule-breaking phrases, the ones that ditch all the cushioning?
We're talking about the really direct stuff. Things like, no way, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Or you must be joking, or you can't be serious.
More.
I totally disagree. Absolutely not. Not a chance. They're blunt, direct, zero softening.
Okay, give us the example scenario, planning a vacation.
Right. You're planning a big trip with your partner, maybe. You're sorting the itinerary, and they suddenly suggest something you find completely terrifying or ridiculous. The example used was cage diving with great white sharks.
Okay. Yeah, not for everyone.
Exactly. In that intimate context, you likely have the relational freedom to be completely direct. You might just say, no way, absolutely not. I was with you on the destination, the hotels, everything. But cage diving, not a chance. I'd much rather we prioritize that whale watching trip we talked about, or maybe just stick to scuba diving somewhere without giant predators.
Huh. Okay, so the directness is fine there because the relationship can handle it. The trust absorbs the shock.
Precisely. In that subphysica context, you can prioritize speed and clarity over elaborate politeness because the underlying relationship isn't fragile.
Fascinating how context completely changes the rules.
It's everything in communication.
Okay, so that covers the whole spectrum, from ultra-polite professional disagreement right down to playfully blunt family arguments. That should give our listeners a really comprehensive toolkit.
Hopefully, yes.
But what about when a conversation just gets stuck? You've used all the strategies, you've tried the phrases, you've been calm, you've stated your reasons, but you've just hit a wall, an impasse. No agreement is happening.
Yes. The seemingly endless disagreement. It happens.
What's the exit strategy then? How do you end it politely without just slamming the door or getting frustrated?
In those moments when both sides are clearly firm in their positions and more discussion just feels, well, unproductive, maybe even repetitive,
Yeah.
the most elegant and actually communicatively mature exit strategy is often the simplest. Just state, calmly and neutrally, let's agree to disagree.
Let's agree to disagree. It sounds so simple, almost cliche, but you're saying it's powerful.
It really is. Don't underestimate it. It carries a significant weight of meaning in these situations.
What does it communicate?
Well, first, it allows the conversation to close peacefully,
Yeah.
without escalating into frustration or bitterness. Second, it explicitly accepts the existence of the disagreement without judgment. It acknowledges that you both have valid but differing viewpoints right now.
And it doesn't burn bridges.
Crucially, no. It leaves the door open. You might revisit the topic later, maybe when emotions have cooled or new information comes to light. But for now, you're choosing to preserve the relationship over forcing an agreement that just isn't there. It's a polite acknowledgement that sometimes mutual understanding of the disagreement is the only successful outcome possible, not necessarily mutual agreement.
That's a really good way to look at it. The ultimate mature exit. Well, hopefully these strategies, these phrases, this whole framework we've unpacked today will give you, the listener, that immediate confidence boost. The confidence to speak up in any English conversation, knowing you've got the tools to state your opinion, even a contrary one, respectfully, clearly, and effectively.
That's the goal, building that communication confidence. And as always, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought, something to mull over, maybe practice these new skills with.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine this scenario. It's drawn from the sources, very real world. You and your work colleagues are trying to figure out how to approach your boss about something. Your boss, probably with good intentions, but maybe not checking schedules, has proposed a specific, firm date for a mandatory team-building weekend.
Sounds okay so far.
But that specific weekend simply doesn't work for about 3/4 of the team. People have prior important personal commitments, weddings, family events, you name it.
Okay. Awkward situation with the boss.
Exactly. So here's the challenge question for you, the listener, to think about.
What specific combination of the phrases and strategies we covered today think recognition, maybe neutrality, definitely solution orientation would you use to politely disagree with your boss's proposed date? How would you acknowledge their initiative while clearly stating the team's collective issue with that specific weekend and ideally offer an alternative, all without breaking those crucial rules of professional engagement?
How do you use impersonal language? How do you avoid but? How do you present a constructive alternative, maybe a date you've already quickly checked with the team?
That's a great practical challenge. Really puts the learning into practice.
That's the real test, isn't it? Turning these ideas into actual conversational confidence.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into a really nuanced part of English communication.
Always a pleasure.
We look forward to the next time we can provide you with another shortcut to being exceptionally well informed.